All right, I believe we are live. I got this sweet shark shirt on, so let me know. We'll do the usual audio tests. Here we go, guys. Let me know if the microphone's good. Internet Face is in here. Xander Beats, Chemtrail Kemi, he's in here as well. Banjo beats are allowed. I actually will play every banjo beat because the banjo is probably the best instrument on earth. Anthony Chablov, we are sounding good. We will do the audio test for this little beat, and then we'll get going. So let me quickly play a beat here. Let me know if we can hear this beat. Let me know if you guys heard that. If so, we'll get going. Tristan's in here. Grout Daddy's in here. That shirt is on point. It's a sweet shirt. Flute beats, I'll allow it. Although flutes are getting played out a little bit recently. Theo's in here. Is this lo-fi? So if you submit your beats and you have a lo-fi beat, I sort of want to give precedence to lo-fi beats, because I plan on doing a video on lo-fi beats, and so I want as many of them to come in so I can sort of do an analysis on some of the things that I see commonly wrong. All right, we are good. Infections in here. C. Clayton, Sharp Vision, Roberto. Why do I have so much swag? I ask that to myself every morning when I wake up. I don't know how this happened. It just did. All right, so the instructions right there. I know, I think it was Hamid that was asking. We have my Discord. In the Discord, there is a channel called, what is it called? Keyword. I'm going to ask a question in the Keyword channel in the Discord. For example, what's your favorite soup? At that point, you email me your beat to the beat that's on this, the email address that's on the screen over here. And you let me know what your favorite soup is. You put that as the subject, and then you attach your beat to it, and we're laughing. We're off to the races listening to beats. Everyone's good. Akuma's in here. Ever Bogus. Why no guitar beats? You heard one, you heard them all, I feel like. I'm sure there are unique guitar beats out there, but so many of them are just like, here's an emo guitar loop, here's some 808s, trap drums, what do you think? I feel like I've heard so many of those exact same beats over and over again. I'm just tired of hearing it. And I want to push you guys. I have some cool plans coming up. I was talking to Grout, and someone's already sending beats in? I haven't even given the keyword. I might as well give the keyword right now. Keyword's coming up right now, guys. I'm about to go into the keyword channel, and I'm going to say, ask a question, and there we go, guys. There is the first keyword, and now, while we listen, or while we wait for you guys to send in your beats, I am going to listen to lo-fi beat here, and this is a beat from Lucanet called Love. We'll take a listen. Before we do, is there anything I need to mention? How are you guys doing? How about that? Let me know in the chattas how you guys are feeling. I'm feeling pretty good. It's +0, which is very nice. Last weekend it was -40 here. That was horrible. So now we're at +0. So the sun's out. I'm feeling good. I have this shark shirt on. Obviously, that's going to make me feel good. Jazz guitar is dope. I'm up for jazz guitar. I just don't want no emo guitar. Maybe I should be more specific. Anyways, let's listen to this lo-fi beat. In the chats, if you could give your feedback on the beat as well. Kemi, what type of language are you speaking? Morning wood. I don't know what's happening. But if you guys can give your feedback while we listen to the beat, that would be very helpful, because a lot of you guys say smart things, and it helps me it helps me review. So let's take a listen to this beat. Here we go, guys. All right, that was Chitty Beats. His beat there called "Love," a lo-fi beat. What are you guys saying here? Tristan did not enjoy that beat. Kemi says the bass is out of key. That's something that I picked out on as well. Grout mentioned that. Same with Anthony. Also kind of trappy where the boom bap swing at. That's another thing that I picked up on. It sounded very interesting with this beat. It was like almost like a hybrid, where the drumming was programmed very much so in the vein of trap. With lo-fi, it has its own sort of drum parameters, and stylistically speaking, it has its own sets of rules. And by all means, I'm not going to say, hey, you can't break them, but nonetheless, this beat almost felt like it was a trap producer trying to make a lo-fi beat for the first time, whereas maybe if they did something a little bit more avant-garde with both the genres, it would have worked well. But here, it just didn't really sound innovative on either front. It felt like a very straightforward lo-fi aesthetic that didn't really capture all of what lo-fi it really does typically. I can't remember who said it in the chat, but someone mentioned that there's like a lack of Foley. Really, it was just almost like this producer grabbed a piano, added isotope vinyl on top of it, added isotope vinyl on the master, and like that was enough for it to be considered lo-fi in their mind. And just like you said in the chat, like there's no boom bap-ish type of feel to the drums. Yeah, it felt like it was like almost just a trap beat with lo-fi effects put on top, which, I mean, that doesn't really cut it for a lo-fi beat. You really do have to understand what's typically done with lo-fi. And yeah, like Grout says, learn about humanizing drums, playing with quantizing and ghost notes, and adding swing. I personally don't automize or what's the word I'm looking for? With FL Studio or any other DAWs, they have this swing bar. I personally don't use it. I like to be a lot more manual with mine, but nonetheless, some degree of swing, basically taking your notes and putting them off grid, is going to help. And the structure of this beat was very strange. It didn't really feel like it had a main idea. Like you guys mentioned, the bass notes were playing incorrect notes at some point, and it felt like there was like one pattern of just like the chords and like another pattern of just the bass, and the bass had its like own weird loop. It was like a 6-bar loop or something, and the chords like a 4-bar loop. It just didn't really feel like there's much cohesion between the different layers. So it just felt like a bit of a miss here, Young Chitty. I think you sort of need to understand that lo-fi is more than just slapping an effect on a trap beat and then calling it a day. There's a little bit more to it. Anthony says, listen to some Jay Dilla. Would Jay Dilla be considered lo-fi? I don't know. I know he's like one of the people that influenced that whole scene, but I feel like his beats are something else typically. All right, what do we have here? Delga likes Hulk. Ty Leader likes Batman. Ant-Man. Daredevil. Deadpool. I never really liked Deadpool, but you know what? I'm gonna listen to this Deadpool beat because I don't want to be discriminative. Man, I can't even think right now. All right, so another lo-fi submission. Let's hear how this lo-fi beat sounds compared to the last one. Let's take a listen to Dagoth's beat here called Chrysanthemum. I don't know. All right. That was a terrifying beat. Buck in the chat said that's like a Silent Hill beat. That's exactly what I first thought of when those sounds came in. I was terrified. So again, another lo-fi-ish beat here. To me, this is a bit closer to what lo-fi should sound like, but There were some things that kept it from sounding as good as it could have possibly been. So my takeaway is that the drum textures that were used were pretty good in terms of wanting to make a lo-fi beat. They sounded like they fit the aesthetic for the most part. And the other instruments that were chosen in this beat were a little bit unusual, which I'm not going to say is a bad thing. He had that sort of ambient pad as well as those constant synthy stabs, which again, I'm not going to say is a bad thing. I'm always up for like pushing boundaries when it comes to genres. I think the issue here is that the bass was getting drowned out a lot. There's just a lot going on in the low end, so it's really difficult to hear and pick up on like a feeling of, I guess, clarity down there. But again, since it is lo-fi, it shouldn't be completely pristine. But I do think shaving a little bit off of that main ambient pad, just clearing out a little bit more room, just because that sound was a bit overbearing and a bit imbalanced. It just took over the entire beat. So I think this beat would have been a little bit more enjoyable to listen to had the low end of the pad been cleaned up a little bit more and just EQ'd out, just to give a little bit more room for the bass, and just have that synth not be as overbearing. The big thing with his beat, though, it was just very repetitive and it was very amelodic. It was the exact same thing over and over again. He did have those switch ups where the different chords are playing for the with the pad there, but nonetheless, during what you consider the verse section, there's the exact same note playing for the pads, and that synth stab at the exact same note over and over again. And that's inherently not a bad thing. If you have something that's consistently playing at the exact same note, that's fine. But typically what you should do at that point is take one of your other instruments and start playing around with that, melodically speaking. So I think a good opportunity would have been if this producer took the pad and just played it the exact same way that he did, and then just use the bass to come up with something that's a little bit more melodic, like make the bass notes jump up and down, come up with something that's a little bit more melodically complex with bass, or introduce a different sound into the beat, have that be something that's a little bit more melodically complex. It sounded like the producer wanted to go for something a little bit more minimal, so going with the bass and being a little bit melodic with that would have been a great opportunity. And if he had cleared out a lot of that low end of the pad, he'd have a lot more space to be a little bit more flexible with the bass if you wanted to go down that route. So I think that's something that my big takeaway was, is just very amelodic, and none of the instruments were sort of moving to a degree that would make this beat feel, keep the listener interested as long. I can see this beat working for like a sort of horrorcore rapper, but at that point you'd be asking the rapper to do like a lot of work, because they'd have to have a large presence to keep this beat engaging. Whereas, the beat could pick up a little bit of slack by just being a little bit more interesting, maybe even introducing a few more layers into the beat as well. Cool beat though, really cool idea. Like I said, I really like when producers push the envelope, and it sounded like a very gothic type of lo-fi beat, which is pretty cool. Just little small things here and there I think could have helped the beat be a little bit better. What are you guys talking about? BMWs, Subarus, soccer mom cars. I have no idea what's happening in my chat, so let's continue. Black Widow, The Flash, Crimson Chin. You guys are just making stuff up. Who's Crimson Chin? Let's go. Who's Giant Hulk? Let's listen to this Giant Hulk beat by Simon Zimney. Let's take a listen. Let me know what you guys think of this beat in the chats. And here we go. that ended spontaneously. So that was Simon's beat there. He's a big fan of Giant Hulk. Favorite superhero is Bella Delphine. I know who that is. I'm not old enough to not know who that is. I know the memes. What am I writing? I'm writing my notes for what I think about the beat. I sort of like to write it all down and come up with a very detailed analysis, better than just change the bass and then move on to the next one. Why am I so buff? The gym reopened last week. I'm back in the gym. I think that's part of why I'm feeling good. Sucking down protein every day. Not that type of protein, you sickos. All right, so in terms of the beat, like a lot of people in the chats mentioned, the hi-hat pattern was a bit off. That didn't really work, the 808 pattern during the hook. I think it was just the notes that were wrong, basically. It was just like a up-down type of pattern. I don't think that's the best pattern to fit with this beat. Coming up with something that's a little bit more, just something that's different, I think would have worked better. What I'll say about the loop, though, it's actually a pretty well put together loop in terms of the different sound selections and what they're all doing. I think the bell was a little bit loud, but that's more just a mixing issue. In terms of the actual composition, which is actually what I care about more, I think is a pretty well put together beat. I think that the bell, like I mentioned, if we compare this to the last beat, I mentioned that the pad was just playing the exact same thing over and over again, and how the producers should have played something a little bit more musical to add a little bit more of a contrast to that. And I think this beat here does a good job of sort of showing what I was talking about, where the bells in the beat were doing something very musical. They were jumping up and down. There's like a lot of movement and a lot of different notes that were playing. And then the producer had like a synth swell that was just one single note. And then there was also a sort of plucked layer in the beat as well, which wasn't really doing that much melodically compared to the bells. So there's a good diverse set of sounds that all have a different amount of melodic complexity to them. So you have the bells that were pretty complex, and then you have like a synth swell that was very straightforward, just one single note. And I think that did a great job of not really overbearing the listener, because a lot of the times when I listen to certain people's beats, they'll want to be as music as possible with every single layer in their beat, and that can really hurt people's production a lot of the times, just because you as a producer, you want to show off your skills as much as you can, and so you want to make everything as musical as possible, but a lot of the times it'll completely drown out the beat and just really hurt it, just because there's just so much going on in the beat that it ends up cluttering everything. So picking certain sounds to be in the forefront, much like the bells were in this beat, and then be a little bit more simplistic with your other layers, that just always is a good way to make sure you have a good balance in the beat. And I think that's exactly what was done with this beat. Is someone telling me to start bodybuilding? Also with just like someone mentioned in the chat, I think it was Buck again, the open hi-hat was a little bit overbearing. I think just being a little bit more sporadic with the open hi-hat programming, or even just reducing how loud it is in the beat and maybe shaving off some frequency just so it's not as overbearing. That would have helped. But yeah, it's just sort of small things, small little changes that could help this beat be a little bit more balanced. Overall, though, I think is a pretty well put together beat. It sounds like you have a good comprehension of what it takes to come up with a good loop. So I feel like you're skilled in that sense. The beat was only 2 minutes long, so now the challenge might become, how can I make this loop interesting for a full beat? That might be where you're at right now. So it'd be interesting to hear what you do with this beat if you had to be pushed to make a full beat. Speaking of which, guys, I've been flirting with this little idea. Let me first explain once again. My online beatmaking course is coming out very, very soon now. Early March, so go to betterbeatmaker.com and join the waitlist. I was talking to Grout and a couple of my other people that I had just as beta testers. The idea I want to start doing is giving you guys challenges. So instead of just beat reviews, what I'm going to do is something like every so often, for every single stream, you're going to have certain parameters and limitations that you have to stick to. So the one that I have right now, that's going to be like the first go around for the people who sign up for the course. I'm going to be doing live streams just for course members only. But the first challenge will be something like your beat has to be 60 BPM. The only bass that you're allowed to use is an 808, and you can only use an 808 for every 2 bars. And I think for me, when I first started making beats, sort of creating these challenges and limitations and forcing myself to make specific types of beats, that really, really helped me, just because it can be easy to make the exact same type of beat you're used to over and over and over again. But at that point, you're not really learning and you're not really doing anything new. So my idea here is to give you guys sort of tracks that you have to stay on, and you guys have to figure out a way to make a good, interesting beat with those limitations. And I'm also going to be joining in. So every single time I do one of these streams, we can start off with a beat that I made using those exact same parameters. And I think it'll be really interesting to hear what all you guys do as well, and like the different types and styles of beats that people come up with. It's never going to be like, well, I won't say what it's never going to be like, but yeah, the idea is that, yeah, it's just going to force certain people to get out of their comfort zone, which is always a good thing. So yeah, I am very excited. Must use cowbell. I think that's going to be the second challenge that I do. Thank you, Miles. That's a great idea. So yeah, if you guys are interested in joining the course, betterbeatmaker.com. It's opening in very soon. I'm going to announce the date on Tuesday, I think. And yeah, 50 plus videos. It's taken me like 3 months to make this thing. So if you struggle with making beats, if they never sound like how you want them to and you don't know what you're doing wrong, this whole course is set up for that explicitly, just to show you guys the common mistakes that every producer makes along the way that keeps them from making better beats and becoming a better beat maker. It's basically like a huge troubleshooting course, and as well, obviously, you'll learn techniques and ideas. So yeah, I'm excited to launch this little puppy. Anyways, must use anime samples. I think, yeah, I'm going to start doing things like you must use this sample, and I'll just give everyone like the YouTube link. And I think it'd be really interesting to hear what all you guys come up with. Toby Maguire. Let's listen to this Toby Maguire type beat. This is from Ruben Calderon. 2-part. I'm not going to listen to a 2-part beat. I'm only listening to the first part here. Elevator. Let's take a listen. Let me know what you guys think about in the chats.
Have you ever shot anyone?
No, I never shot nobody. You know what I mean? I never shot nobody.
Thank you, Benny.
Did you ever hurt anyone physically?
Oh, you know, always, yeah. We always beat people up. I'm not gonna lie to you. Sometimes you do what you gotta do to survive, man.
right, that was Young Ruben's beat there, a little two-part beat. At first, I was gonna cut it off, but I actually enjoyed what you did there, which I will talk about soon. A lot of people enjoyed that beat. Nice transition, took a little while. I'd add more drum variation. This is 3 beats in one. Did I miss a beat somewhere in there? You should have made this 2 beats instead. Needs more energy. It's interesting with certain people's responses. Theo B says it's fire. This goes hard, says Sharp Vision. All right, so my takeaway. So I'll talk about the first part of the beat because that's where most of my thinking was. It's a cool beat. I think I can really see a rapper using that exact type of beat. It was minimal enough to be used by an artist, but enough going on in it where I got your idea and it all got put across. I think you did a good job of executing your idea to the point where, like I said, you got your idea across, but there's enough for a rapper to use it. I think Miles in the chat talked about how a little bit more reverb might have helped. I think I would have agreed just on the guitar layer, just to help it fill up more space in the beat. If you remember in the video, I talked about the 5 red flags of most beats. I talked about how most of the time certain producers will just think about like the beat in terms of a flat type of perspective, whereas thinking about the back and forth of the beat can be very beneficial. You also need to consider to taking up all those spaces in the beat, and reverb can help with that. So I think that might have helped with the guitar layer. I enjoyed the 808 switch up. It brought the energy up. That was a cool way of sort of building a verse hook type of thing. I would have, well, I'll talk about that in a second. The layers that you added in worked musically speaking. I think the sound selection, for the most part, it was good, but then you had that second half of the first beat where that organ stab came in, and at first it sounded fine at the lower octave, but then when it went up an octave, the sound started to feel a little bit detached from the beat, just because it was very synthy, it was very stock sounding. It didn't feel like it had any processing on top of it, whereas the guitar felt very processed, not in a bad way by any means. But in terms of like, the guitar felt like it sit in a very specific space and it had a very specific aesthetic to it. And applying that exact same aesthetic onto that organ stab might have helped both those instruments gel together. The difficulty here is I don't know whether you came up with a guitar loop or whether it was a pre-programmed loop. If you came up with it, just like grabbing some of the effects that you used on the guitar, slapping that onto the organ bass, just so they sort of have a matching aesthetic, that could have been one of the things that could have helped them sit together a little bit better. But nonetheless, I sort of felt like those organ stabs stuck out a tiny bit and didn't really fit into the beat in terms of the aesthetic. Yeah, like I mentioned, I was going to turn the beat off, but then I really like that switch up. I think you did a very smart thing here. I've seen a few people in my comments ask about how to make beat switch ups, and I think you did something that's very can help a lot of people understand how switch ups can be a lot smoother, where you take one thing from the first section of the beat and you keep that layer playing throughout the entire thing, and then you have the other elements change. So in this example, you had the sort of male chorus sound that was brought over from like the very end of the first beat, and you sort of tied that in together. You tied that very well into the first beat, and then you kept it playing during the whole transition, and then you tied it very well to the second beat. So it sort of created a layer of consistency that felt seamless, so then you can make the changes to the other layers and introduce different sounds. So that's exactly how you should go about making beat transitions, and I think you did that flawlessly. And yeah, a lot of people seem to like that second beat. Really felt like almost A$AP Rocky-esque, his first mixtape, very ethereal. That was a cool beat. Nothing really stood out to me as anything problematic there. Yeah, I think you did a great job of that second beat. I really liked that one. It was a very cool aesthetic to use that sort of male vocal sample as the bedrock for that beat. But yeah, I think just my only thing that I would say is just the additional sounds that you added in. I'm not sure whether you used a loop there or not, but the additional sounds just sort of stuck out a little bit. So maybe going about using some mixing tools and try to get them to fit a little bit better would have helped. That's just my take. Guys, I got this water bottle. It's a girl's color. This pencil I'm using is a girl's color. Come on, guys. Let's get sexist. We'll move on from that keyword. Let's go on to the next one here. The keyword, I'm about to type this little puppy in. What should I do? Wait, I did that one last week. Here's what we'll do. Whoa. I'm asking very stupid questions today. So we'll listen to another beat here. I want to listen to another lo-fi beat. Lo-fi submission by JZ Ace. Let's take a listen to that one. Daughter reveal. I do not have a daughter. I purposely chose these colors. What does that say about me? I have the taste of a little girl is what that says. This sexism in me is just me self-loathing. Girl colors are hot right now. All right, cool. Gender is a social construct. Don't know about that. Here we go. JZ Ace. Let's take a listen to the Turtle Tank. Yeah. All right, that was JZ Ace's lo-fi submission. So yeah, I think a lot of people enjoyed the chillness of that beat. That was a very chill beat, cool video game-ish, almost a Japanese type of track there. I think the producer did a good job of adding some cool Foley sounds. He had a sort of water streaming sound as the high-end replacement. Like I talked about in a few other videos, when you peel off a lot of the high end to make it sound a little bit more lo-fi, you do need to replace the high end with another sound. A lot of the times static is used, the sound of rain, and this example is that sort of water running sound. So that was a good job. On that front, the drums were programmed in the lo-fi aesthetic. They were very minimal, very in the back. They weren't in the foreground, not as in your face, which plays into one style of lo-fi, which worked for me. I think my screen is frozen. Is it? I'm not frozen. I'm moving around right now. Let me know if the screen is frozen right now, or is Savs is he playing around, monkeying around in the chat? I think one thing at this beat is that the sounds could have used a little bit more saturation. So I think it was DMV in the chat that mentioned that sausage fattener could have been used. So generally speaking, I think any saturator or distorter could have helped, just because all the sounds, the different synths that were used in here, they did play into that sort of chill, cool aesthetic, but they sounded somewhat email screen's frozen. Oh, because I'm still on that one. That was my fault, sorry. The sounds in here, they're still a bit cold. Like, there were no high-end bright sounds, so a lot of the high-end EQing was done well. But I feel like nonetheless they still sounded very synthy. They weren't very warm, and with a lot of lo-fi beats, you sort of do want to introduce that sort of cassette vinyl feel. And you got to do more than just peel off the high end. A lot of warmth needs to be introduced, and a lot of the ways you can do that is by using a saturator or a distorter, because what that does is it creates harmonic generation in your sound. And the thing is, with a lot of synthy, like straightforward synths, that like the ones that were used in this beat here, it'd be a lot easier if I could show you guys on screen. But when you play like a synth, like a saw or a square, the frequency readout is going to be very repetitive, where you're going to have the exact same frequency playing the exact same pattern. And so that's how you can get that sort of cold feeling where it sounds very synthy and not very natural, just because it's like a very, almost like a mathematical sound where it's the exact same frequencies peaking every so often. And what saturation can do is create harmonics in your sound, where all of a sudden there's going to be a bunch of different ranges of frequencies that get sort of introduced into the sound. It becomes a lot more robust and a lot more evened out. And I think that is a technique that you can use to go a long way in terms of introducing some warmth into your sound. I plan on doing a more comprehensive video on exactly why this is such a useful technique. But for now, I would say if you feel like you're using synths and they feel very cold and they feel very natural in your beat, one of the reasons why is because one of the ways that you can fix it is using man, I can't even speak English right now. One of the ways that you can fix it is by using saturation or distortion. Sorry guys, I cannot speak the English. By the way, in my chat, someone mentioned they asked about mixing and mastering, and one other person said they struggle with drum selection. So both of those things are included in the course. Those are big focuses. If you want to, you can go into my Discord in the announcements area. I pulled up a little GIF of or an MP4 of the entire course curriculum. So you know what? Here we go, guys. I'm about to do some craziness right here. Give me 1 second. Actually, should I go there? Give me 1 second, guys. Hold on. Wait, what am I doing right now? While I do this, please go ahead and entertain yourselves. All right, my Chrome browser is just not working right now. Never mind, guys. This is being annoying. So let's just move on to the next beat. Maybe I'll do this a little bit later in the stream. Neapolitan pistachios. Let's listen to a nice vanilla beat here. Ty Leader, he's only 13 and he's only had FL Studio since last November. So we'll keep that in context here. This is a very new producer, so I'm not going to be judging as harshly. I'll try to keep this person's experience in mind. All four are very different, but just as good, he says. So MBDTF type beat. Is that My Dark Beautiful Twist? Let's listen to this Kanye West type beat here. I want to hear how this sounds. So let's take a listen to Ty Leader's beat here. All right, Ty, I had to give you the smooth fade out there. You got like another 2 minutes on this beat, and I don't think that would be fair to everyone else. But yeah, a lot of people in the chat are saying it's a very positive reaction there, and I think it's pretty impressive for a 13-year-old. And you've only been doing this for like 5 months. I don't know what I was doing at 13. What grade are you in? Grade 6 or something? I was probably playing Pokemans at the time. So yeah, I'll keep that in mind that this young buck is only 13, only been making beats for 3, 4, 5 months now. Really impressive. A lot of people in the chats agree. I would say that my review is sound selection was really cool. All those small little sounds that you chose That was really impressive that you sort of forewent the typical boring like percussive noises and you chose these really cool, unique types of sounds. I would say make sure to keep that in you as you go forward making beats. Be audacious with your sound selection. Pick noises that sound cool to you. I think that a lot of the times you can feel pressure to sort of regress to the means, meaning do what everyone else is doing. Pick the sounds that are in style and sort of whatever everyone else is using. I think what you did here in terms of those small little sound selections, very impressive, and I want to commend you on that. So good job on that. Keep going. You kept the beat pretty interesting as well. Like I mentioned, for most of the people that just started making beats, I tell them to not focus on arranging the beat because a lot of the times that can be a little bit overwhelming, but I think you did a pretty good job with your arrangement here. You kept things interesting. Obviously there's still like 2 minutes to go, but with what I've heard, you did a good job of like going or introducing sounds, removing sounds, and keeping the sort of structure interesting. The thing that I would say is that for one, put a limiter on your master. I'm sure that when you did try to do that with this beat, everything got squashed and it didn't sound good to you after that. Nonetheless, that's one of the things that you're going to have to deal with. You need your beat to sound good even when everything's peaked at 0 decibels, because like I say to people before, there's going to come a time when you're going to get squashed anyways. When you upload it to YouTube, I see tons of producers always complain about how their beats suck once they upload onto YouTube and they don't know why. A lot of the times it's because their beats are going over 0 decibels, and a lot of these platforms, whether it's Spotify or YouTube, they have their own sort of compression algorithm where they try to get every single beat to sound at the similar type of level. And so what happened with this beat is that the entire thing would just get squashed down. It would sound completely unbalanced and completely different than what you made here. And so to avert that, you're going to need to figure out a way to produce and make your beat sound good when it's at 0 decibels. So that's one thing that I will say. You need your beat to sound good. That's a quote. That's a quote directly from me. That's something that you need to do. Figure out a way to get your beat to sound good at 0 decibels without going over. And a good way to help you do that is just to slap a limiter at the very end of your chain on the master, and just leave it as is. If you're using FL Studio, it'll just cut everything off above 0 decibels, and then it's up to you to figure out how to get it to sound good. And I think certain people in the chat mentioned that the strings in the beat were a little bit powerful. I would say I would agree. I think maybe turning them down or just playing with pushing them a little bit further back in the beat so they're not as in your forefront in the beat. If you watched my video on the 5 red flags of most beat makers make, 5 red flags of most beats that can go wrong or something. I can't remember what I titled it. One of the things that I mentioned is that taking certain elements in your beat and playing with the back and forth, the foreground, the background, the middle ground, if that's an easy way to think about it, is something that's going to help your beat. And I think if you just took the strings and you sort of made it a little bit more secondary, pushed it into the back a little bit, that could also be something that you could think about in conjunction with decreasing the volume. Nonetheless, I would say good job to you, young man. You're very impressive for your age. Groud says the stock limiter preset isn't brick limiter, isn't it? I'm pretty sure it is. When you slap on the FL limiter on anything, I believe the peak brick wall is at 0 decibels. And this FL, this stock, yeah. Anyways, let's keep on going with these ice cream beats. For some reason my Chrome's not working. This is malarkey, guys. I wanted to show you guys the full curriculum for the course, but well, let's listen to Feast Jack's beat here. I don't think I've heard Feast Jack's beat, called Serving. He is a Français. He's a Frenchman. So hopefully he understands the words that I'm speaking right now. Feast Jack, we will listen to your beat and we will say magnifique, sacre bleu. All right. Grout, I reposted the curriculum in Discord. Thank you very much, Grout. A lot of people enjoyed this, a little ditty here. They think it was a wee, a sacre bleu. Drop was kicking pretty hard. Snare variation might be improvement. What am I reading? 808's definitely coming through on the phone. A lot of people like the stops. Fire, says Aldo. So my take on the beat, very nice melody. You came up with a nice little loop there. Cool sound selection. I really enjoyed that cool synth that you brought in every now and again. It sounded like maybe you pitched down the main sound or something, maybe some halftime. I'm not sure what that was. Nonetheless, very cool sound. The different components in the beat were very well put together. KT1 in the chat said he would have liked the drums to be a little bit more unique. I sort of felt the same. The drum, as well as the drum pattern, was a little bit on point, like very run-of-the-mill standard. Maybe introducing some little bit more of your personality into your drums could be a way to go. It sounds like you have cool sound selection with your synths and whatnot. So maybe getting a little bit more audacious with some of the drum sounds could really help bring your own personality into the beat a little bit more, just because it did feel like the drums made the beat feel a little bit more, a little bit less unique than maybe if they weren't. I'm just going to completely stop talking because I don't know what happened with my brain there. Anyways, let me keep going. One of the things that sort of stood out to me was the transitions in the beat were a bit abrupt. So when you went from the verse section into the hook, it sounded like the entire beat was just replaying over. You didn't have like a good transition there. So if you watch the video that I put out last month about how to get your beat to sound a little bit more professional, one of the things that I talked about was having a little bit of a blending effect between different sections in your beat, so everything doesn't just happen all at once, which is exactly what happened in this beat for the most part. You did have the tape stop effect, but nonetheless, playing around with your different sounds and sort of going a little bit further in terms of having certain patterns blend into the next area, having them cut off a little bit early, also introducing some transition noises can help. So I really recommend checking out that video. But nonetheless, I really do think the sound selection was on point with the synths and whatnot. Maybe adding a little bit more flavor into the drums could help. But nonetheless, really well put together beat. Good job to this Frenchman. It was Louis Riel Day here a couple weeks ago, so I will say, qu'est-ce que c'est, oui, oui, oui. That's my, what? Someone put their favorite ice cream flavor is me? That's sexual, man. Come on. Let's go to someone who submitted a lot earlier. Because I know you guys get very upset that you submit very early and then I don't listen to the very early ones. So, man, there's a lot of flavors here. Jeez Louise. Let's do this. Wait, where are we here? How many ice creams are there in this world? Booger flavor. Let's listen to A-Man's Booger beat. Because he's a silly guy and I like his attitude here. A-Man Booger type beat. Here we go. I'm gonna have to give A-Man the smooth fade out there. I feel like we know exactly what the remaining 2.5 minutes is gonna be. So what I'll say about this booger type beat right here, couple things. Number one, I mentioned flatness a few times in this stream already. I sort of feel like that's one of the things that this beat is a little bit guilty of. Everything was just really in my face. There was sort of no depth in any of the sounds. So I think that's one thing that was lacking. And in the exact same video, I also talked about the need for basically rhythmic variation. So with this beat here, the chords, whenever the chord change happened, different note was playing with the melody, and everything basically moved and changed at the exact same time. So that's another thing that really stuck out and really hurt this beat in my opinion. So to A-Man, I would say stop eating boogers, and I would say check out that video on the 5 red flags that I see in a lot of beats. I think some of those concepts can really help you out and help you identify some of the things that sort of went wrong with this beat. And that's as much as I'll say about this beat tonight. It's 5 o'clock. Let's change the keyword, guys. We've been strawberry infection. Need to learn how to spell berry, man. So let's change up this keyword. Let's go with a classic. One of my favorites, my favorite keyword to ask you guys. Voila, that's what I want to hear. And there's this guy in my Discord named Adam Sandler. Do you think that's really him? Is that really Adam Sandler in my Discord? I can't believe it. I still can't open a new gosh darn window. This is kind of annoying. Whatever. So listen to yet another beat here. Is there any more lo-fi ones? I already did Jay-Z's. Kirky beats. Let's listen to this lo-fi beat here. Let me know what you think in the chats. Here we go. This sounds like a guitar type beat. I might be bailing here. All right, that was Kirky Beats Restless Nights. A lot of people in the chatters said they enjoyed it. For someone, I can't remember who said, I think it's Trent that said the screen was frozen. I'm playing this off the Discord while people submit their beats in the email, so that's why it's frozen right now. It's still, yeah. So in terms of this beat, I really liked the amount of melodic variation here. He had a good conception of like taking that piano and having it play something a little bit more dense, and the guitar playing something a little bit more chill. Just like I mentioned earlier in the stream with one of the other beats, a lot of the times producers want to make every single component in the beat as melodically complex as possible. I think this beat did a good job of demonstrating how certain things should be a little bit more complex, but if so, make something a little bit more straightforward. And I sort of feel like that's what happened with that guitar. It wasn't too out there and like crazy. It was pretty simple melodically speaking, and so there's a nice little balance in there. I wasn't a big fan of the snare. It was yeah, I don't know, it was a very out of place sounding snare. Didn't really feel like it fit in with the rest of the beat. But that can easily be changed. I think overall, pretty cool beat. Very dreamy, as Miles mentioned. Sleepy time beat. Keygen music. Yeah. I don't really have anything in terms of criticism with this beat. Perfectly fine. As you guys know, I'm not a big guitar boy, but it fit the bill. It was fine. All right, let's listen to the first person who submitted their favorite thing. Jabron says, me and him. He's trying to be a funny boy, but nonetheless. Let's listen to his beat. Jabron Savul. He's got this lo-fi, kinda, and I made it as a joke. I hope this is not obnoxious.
It's 3 degrees outside. Oh my God. I love my country best, but I hate the fucking hate weather. Canada, Canada, you are the best country I ever had in my life. But your weather keeps sucking my Canada. I knew you since you were a little baby boy. And now you're fucking being with my weather. I want cold weather. Fuck.
All right, that was Jabroni's beat. Very strange. Yeah, I don't know what to make of that. That was the first half of the beat was just like, what is this? I really enjoyed the second half once you actually sort of got serious and you made an actual serious beat. That was a really cool beat there. I would have actually enjoyed to hear your actual idea instead of you trying to be a jokey prankster, trying to be a funny boy. I'd actually really like to hear what your full beat would have sounded like, or what you would want to put forward as an artist. To me, the first half of this beat was just like, this is kind of pointless. And I'm sure for a lot of people, they probably just got turned off by it. And so, you know, put your foot forward. Try to just make a music that has merit on its own, instead of trying to crowbar in some sort of weird comedy thing that doesn't really land. Because I think a lot of people in the chats were like, what the hell is this? Myself included. So yeah, I would have actually liked to hear your actual chops, what you can actually do as a beat maker, because it actually sounds like you know how to make good beats. Unfortunately, we only got to see a small glimpse of that. And yeah, it makes me sad that I didn't get to hear more of that idea. Let's listen to someone who I don't know who they are. Lunar Vision by Infection. You always find your way. By the way, guys, thank you for coming to this stream. We're still going to go for quite a bit. I just want to thank you, Sweetie Pies, for coming by. It's always nice. And I forgot to talk about this or say this for the last few streams, but respect to all you guys that are actually submitting and actually want feedback and are actually putting your stuff out there. It's always difficult, always scary to put your music out and say, like, let alone putting your music out, but also going the extra mile and saying, what do you think of this? Can I get feedback? Just because you're asking to get criticized, and a lot of people are terribly afraid of hearing something negative being said about their music, because we all to some certain degree feel like that's a reflection of our own worth as musicians, and so it can be very scary to do that. And so I want to say you're all brave boys. Respect to all you guys for actually putting your music out there and asking for feedback. There are people that are probably too afraid to do so, and those are the people that aren't going to develop as quickly because they don't get any mechanism for improvement, and they sort of sit in this sort of nebulous, all music's subjective, all music's good. I actually plan on doing a video on this exact topic because that sort of mentality annoys me to a degree. And I think it really does hamper people's ability to improve because they sort of sit in this weird state where nothing's good, nothing's bad, everything's equal, don't criticize. I see certain people comment those things on my videos where I point out certain red flags. They'll say things like, you shouldn't be saying something's bad because all music is subjective. That's bullshit. So nonetheless, respect to all you guys for actually wanting to improve and seeking out ways that you can do so. So respect to all you guys for coming here, and big kisses for all of you. Now let's listen to this beat by Infection here. Alright, that was a short one. That was Infection's beat there. So one thing that I'll say is that obviously very short, so it's very hard for me to get a good gauge of what this beat's about. Really cool textures. I sort of like the sound selection and what you did with them. The panning of the hi-hats was pretty cool, and these sort of in-your-face guitar. I don't know whether this would be a sort of battle beat because everything is very maximal, and so if this was meant to be used for an artist, obviously you'd have to put things a little bit down and bring things a little bit lower in volume. I think one thing that I'll say that is helpful to think about for everyone, right when the beat started, it had a very strange, unique rhythm with those hi-hats, and that's not inherently a bad thing. But I find that whenever you have something that's a little bit strange, rhythmically speaking, than what the audience might be used to, it can be helpful to introduce layers one by one and get the audience sort of acquainted with the different pieces. Like with this beat, everything came in right out the jump, and it was a very unusual rhythm to many of the sounds in here. And so just sort of easing someone into like a cold water type of thing can be a way of doing this. So having one layer play, like just starting with that guitar, people sort of get a sense of like, hey, this is sort of a little bit strange, a little bit unique, and then bringing in the hi-hat afterwards instead of just having everything coming at once. And it was a little bit jarring for me right at the jump. I couldn't catch what the rhythm of the beat actually was until like a few bars in. So to help the listener sort of get acquainted to what you're doing, if you are going a little bit off the beaten path and doing something a little bit more unusual, just doing it sort of incrementally can help. So that's all I'll say about this beat. It's very short, so it's hard for me to get an actual feel for what you're doing here. Cool sound selection, though. I would have liked to hear what your full idea would have been before I can say more about it. Let's listen to let's see here. Let us see. I've been listening to a lot of Dilla this weekend. So let's listen to Spiga's beat here, No Limit. Let's see what he's got here. All right. That was Spiga's beat there. Somewhat reminiscent to some degree of Donuts. Also somewhat reminiscent of Ninth Wonder, like Ves Grady mentioned. The way it was sort of chopped and arranged. Yeah, cool sample. I like the way it was put together. Don't really have much to say about this beat though, just because, again, another short beat. It would have been interesting to see how you could go about making this full beat stay interesting for the entire thing. Yeah, you had, I don't know, I sort of feel like I'm at a loss for what to say in terms of like a criticism. It's very straight down the line. I feel like this type of beat has been heard before. You're obviously doing something a little bit more nostalgic, and I think you executed it very well. Yeah, I sort of feel like some of the chops were a bit, the rhythm sort of changed because whenever you did a little short switch up and the drums from the sample came back in, I can sort of hear that the rhythm sort of shifted a little bit, but it's not the end of the world. Maybe stretching those portions out so they fit a little bit better might be a thing, but ultimately part of me believes that this beat was a little bit short because you might have been struggling with how to keep it interesting for a little bit longer, and that is a very prominent problem whenever someone samples. It can be pretty difficult to arrange a full beat out just because so many of the different pieces are just a lot more stagnant, like basically static. You can't really pull the sample apart and say, okay, I'm going to change this part of the sample or that part. There's just so much of what your beat is about is just in the sample. It's like 80% sample, so you can't really play around with it. So I would have liked to see whether you can take this beat and make it into a full one, because that to me would signify your skill as a sample-based producer. Coming up with a loop is one thing, which is exactly what you did here, and it sounded fine, But if you can make that into a full beat, that's sort of another thing, just because that's going to be the difficulty with samples. So yeah, I would have liked to see what you guys, or what you've been able to do with a full beat if you're forced to do so. Which again, one of the things I want to do with my course, I'm going to have nice challenges, nice, I don't know if it's going to be bi-weekly or something. I'm going to have live streams where I give you guys challenges, and I'm going to contribute as well. So that will be very fun to do. As Grout said, guys, my beat making course is coming out very, very soon. Get on the wait list, even if you might think that you don't want to join. I'm only giving waitlist members the discount as well as early access. Once this thing launches to everyone, that discount is going to be gone. So even if you're sort of on the fence and you don't know, just join the waitlist just in case, because you're going to miss out on the discount if you do decide you want to join, but it's going to be a little bit later. So you don't want to miss out on that. This course covers every single thing of beat making: how to start a beat, how to make your own samples, how to sample if you want to use samples and make a good beat out of it, drum patterns, drum selection, bass pattern, bass selection, how to add sounds into your beat that actually work and sound like they fit well. I sort of take you guys through all the different ideas and things that you should know whenever you're building your beat out, how to arrange your beats, how to make sure you have like we just talked about with this beat here, how to take those pieces and figure out different strategies and ways that you can make a full beat out of pretty much anything that you have, and the things that you need to know. Common mistakes that I've seen a lot of beats, in my own beats as well, after doing this for 10 plus years. A lot of the times I've felt like I've been making the exact same mistakes over and over again, and I just picked up on it, and I sort of just came up with this short area where you just do like a troubleshooting thing. Whenever you listen to your beat the day after, you're like, okay, there's something wrong with this beat, but I don't know what. I take you through like the most common errors that are probably happening in your beat, that are just small little things that are holding your beat back from sounding good, and I sort of identify all those things and walk you through the changes that you need to make to improve your beats. And so hopefully, if you ever made a beat and it sounds like something's not quite working and you don't know what the day after, this will help you out. Mixing and mastering, as well as a marketing section where I walk you guys through what I did to grow my YouTube channel. It might seem like randomness, it might seem like luck to some people, but there's actually a very in-place system that I use that I basically share with you guys. And if you're selling type beats, I give you a huge master list of the best type beats that you should be using. Thank you to Grout, who helped me with that. I basically, if you're just starting your channel out, I give you the best keywords that you should be using in order to rank, start getting traffic in. Is it under $1,000? Definitely. It's not going to be some absurd amount, but at the same time, it's not going to be some junky Udemy course that's like $15. I've spent 3-4 months putting this together. It's basically every single thing that I've learned in my 10 plus years of making beats all in one place. You will not learn how to make guitar beats though. Let me say that. Well, technically you sort of will if you apply it, but there is no, wait a minute, there is a guitar in my course. I take it back. You will learn how to make a guitar type beat, guys. Alright, let's listen to a Kenny Beats beat by Adrian Samarasinga. So yeah, let's head over to betterbeatmaker.com if that sounds sexy to you guys, because I know it sounds sexy to me. You have to ask Dave Pensado, but a lot of people got killed from mixing for hours. That's definitely 100% true. This is one of the things that I talk about in the course. I might as well say it now. You guys need to understand your value as a producer, composer, beat maker, whatever you want to call yourself. A lot of people care about your idea and what it is. For me, I basically never mixed and mastered my beats whenever I sent them out to get placements, whether it was the artist that I work with or the video game that I made the soundtrack for 1 or 2 years ago now. Never mixed and mastered my ideas. That's only something that I did if I was putting something out for final distribution to the public, and it was my responsibility. When I worked with artists, they had their own engineers. When I had to put the music out for the video game, it was all on me, so that's the only time I did it. I'm gonna put my own EPs out for like a final listening experience. But if you're trying to work with artists and you're trying to work on projects, yeah, a lot of time is wasted with mixing and mastering. So know your value, know what people want out of you, and maximize your time spent on improving those skills. Artists do not care whether your snare is polished or whether you created your own synths. They don't give a shit about any of that. What they want to hear is what your idea is. So yeah, that's a big thing that I agree with. Anyways, let's listen to this beat. Let me know what you guys think. And hit like on the stream. So you know what? If I get to 1,000 people in this chat, I'll take my shirt off. How's that for incentive? 10,000 people, because I'm scared now. All right, let's listen to this beat. Alright, that was Bane's beat there. I didn't know that was Bane that was sending it in. Bane, what's your real name? Adrian. I'm about to dox you, man. Everyone knows your name's Adrian now. You scared me with those ghost knocks. I was terrified. I thought someone heard that I was about to take my shirt off and they're knocking on my door because they wanted a piece of the action. When someone said to get this posted on Wall Street Bets, that was funny. So with this beat, I really like the main loop that you chose here. Cool sound selection. I liked. I don't know whether that was something that you came up with or whether it was a loop, but nonetheless, really well done on that part. I really liked what you did, where you sort of rearranged it for a specific part of the beat with the switch up there. I liked that part. But overall, what I would say is that there just was not enough variation to the beat. It got repetitive eventually. Again, you did have that sort of part where you added variation to the actual loop, but I just felt like that wasn't enough. So at this point, with this beat specifically, I remember I listened to your beats prior. I sort of feel like you know what you're doing with the main loop. You have these really great ideas. What I would like to see now is just to push it further in terms of the arrangement. Start forcing yourself to like make bigger shifts in your arrangement. I can't say whether I remember this being something in your prior beats, but with this beat specifically, just pushing yourself to see, okay, what's going to happen if I try to add more sounds into this beat, because that would have been something that would have been very effective with this beat, just adding different sounds in on top of your main loop there to help build a chorus, so that you have switch up with the arrangement with that loop plus a new sound. That could have went a long way in helping you build out something that actually sounds like a hook, as opposed to just this short little switch up that didn't really feel all that meaningful. Also with like a drum pattern switch up here and there, just small little sounds. You had that little ghost knocking sound, but maybe something a little bit more impactful, something that's going to introduce a little bit more I should say a lot more variation in terms of the arrangement. Could have been something that went a long way in helping the beat feel not as repetitive. So yeah, like I said, I can't remember how your old beats sounded, but with this beat, I would say try to push yourself to get to the part where you're going to start focusing on arranging, because I do remember before that the actual loop and the actual concept of your beat, I enjoyed them. So yeah, I think keep it up on that aspect, but start pushing yourself when it comes to arranging. I'm a saint for listening to these all the way through. Yeah, part of me does want to cut it off, but sometimes beat makers do have switch ups, so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But again, just like that booger beat, I did cut that off early, so I do have my limitations. All right, so let's listen to. It's already 5:40, guys. Oh my god, I can't believe it. Let's listen to a young, like Trent. I listened to your beats quite a bit. I'm sorry I did open your thing there, but I do want to give someone else a chance. Young Trent, I remember you. Let's listen to Nevin Pico. He's got this beat. His favorite producer's Oni Baba. I don't know who that is, so let's listen to this beat called Sunflowers. By the way, the GS King keeps telling me to review faster. No. That was Nevin Pico's beat. A lot of people enjoyed that beat. Trent says he likes the flute. I hope you accepted my apology, Trent. I know it hurts. Good, but I think if it's going to be a bit repetitive, cut it a little bit sooner. Nice snare roll. Alright, so here's what I'll say about this beat. Great detail with the drum work there. I think there's a lot of small little textures that you added in that really went a long way in making the beat feel a lot more full. You did a good job of playing around with the stereo presence of the drum loop. In terms of the loop itself, the sound selection, I really enjoyed it. Very chill and cool. That sort of wobbly, little tiny bit of a wobble to it with that flute sound. It sounded like there's a little bit of modulation going on with it that kept it a little bit more unique. Sounded like a flute synth. I'm not sure what it was. The one thing that I will say that could have helped this beat, like I mentioned in the video with the 5 red flags, with the rhythmic variation, it was a bit lacking here. It just felt like, I can't remember who said, but something felt a little bit like repetitive and very boring. I think boring is obviously a little bit much. I don't think this beat's boring, but I think one of the things that makes this beat not as engaging as it could be is just the lack of rhythmic variation. So if I open this beat up here, so here we have the first flute and then the bass. Listen to the flute and the bass and when they play. So whenever the bass note changes, the flute note also changes. And that's sort of what I mean about rhythmic variation. Not having every single note of every single instrument in your beat change at the exact same time can be a way to add a little bit more interest and play around with making the beats feel a little bit more unique. So instead of the bass going dun 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 dun, just like change the timing of it just to have the beat feel a little bit more, just taking the elements and having them do a little bit more different things can add a little bit more of a interesting feeling into the beat, just so everything doesn't feel like it's going to change at the exact same time and the beat starts to sound a little bit more predictable and the listeners just sort of knows what to expect because they're basically hearing every single instrument do the exact same thing at the exact same time. So yeah, what I would say is play around with the bass down there and maybe even picking a bass that isn't as big. Yeah, I just recorded a video last week on 808s and it sounded like this. I don't know, I'm not sure whether this is an 808, but it's a very prominent big type of bass, and that can really make your job difficult when trying to come up with a bit of a more flexible, complex bass line, because the 808 is just so big and present that it becomes a lot more difficult to come up with a bass pattern that's a little bit more complicated and still have it sound good. That video is not going to come out for like another 2 months though, so when it does come out, watch it because it will help you understand the different types of bass textures that you can use and some of the benefits and the pros and cons of each. How do we make a good beat that's very monotonous in rhythm? I feel like it can go really well with the right vibe and the right artist on top. Yeah, I agree, but I guess at that point you're depending on the artist to sort of know and catch on and understand that they have to be a little bit more rhythmically complex, I would say. And obviously this is not a review of his entire library. This producer might have a good sense of what I'm talking about and knows to sort of go back and forth and maybe do something that's a little bit more rhythmically straightforward. The idea ultimately though is that if you're going to be complex and be audacious with one element, you might want to be a little bit more conservative with the other. With this beat, it didn't really feel like there was anything in this beat that was rhythmically, that jumped out to me rhythmically speaking, that was like, oh, that's a really unique take on this instrument. So It's all a balancing act fundamentally. It's hard to say because I know what you mean. There are certain instances where a sort of very straightforward beat is still fine, but at that point, like I mentioned, you're hoping that the rapper does a lot of the heavy lifting and brings a lot of presence into the beat. And depending on the artist that you're trying to work with, that can be a lot to ask for them. So, it's hard to say because we're sort of producing in a vacuum here, and obviously it's going to depend on the artist and what they want. Yeah, it's just something to think about more than anything. I just want to make sure that you guys understand that concept and have it in mind, so that if the artist does come to you and say, this beat sounds a little bit boring, I'm not sure why, you sort of have that tool set in your mind of, okay, maybe if I introduce a little bit more rhythmic variation, that can be one of the reasons why. So I guess it's somewhat giving you guys this sort of vocabulary in the tool set in case you run into this problem. Let's listen to this beat because Cold 187 is a very, very old school producer from Above the Law, old West Coast group that I love. So I'm interested to hear this producer's take on it. Yeah, we're gonna go for another, let's say 20-ish minutes. We'll do one more keyword after this, half a keyword or something, and then we'll call it a night. But we're gonna keep going for a little bit more. Thank you for showing up. As always, you're all cutie pies. I love you all. And next week this Tuesday we've got a very interesting video coming out. And then my sexy little course is going to be coming out soon as well. So betterbeatmaker.com. Make sure to head over there. Sign up. If you struggle with making beats, if you make beats that don't sound as good as you want them to and you don't know what you're doing wrong, that's what this course is designed for, to show you every single step of the beat making process so you know what you're doing wrong and you can make better beats. Here we go. Let's listen to this beat. was Tourniquet's beat there, Cold 187 type of beat. I can sort of hear the influence there, mainly in that low end and as well as the West Coast whistle. The one quick thing I want to say, Miss G is in the chat right now. I think I saw Karasama earlier. J Trot, who's also in the Discord, and Grout. I don't know if Grout went through the course yet. I think he just started. But if you want a sort of unbiased opinion of the course, all these people have gone through the course. They were my beta testers. So obviously I'm going to say the course is something that's going to be good because I honestly believe it is good. But if you want something that's a little bit neutral, ask them what their opinions are. You can message them. Hopefully they're fine with that. If not, they'll hopefully just ignore you. But yeah, let them tell you what their opinion is of the course, whether it helps them or not, because I really do want to make sure I get the right people in this course. I don't want you guys to feel like you're getting a raw deal, and I want to make sure I'm making something that's really valuable to you. So ask them what their experience is, whether they benefited from the course, and what things they felt would the course help them with. If it sounds like something that could help you, at that point, I want you to feel confident and like you're actually going to get value out of the course, because obviously it's not going to be for everyone. And so, just want to quickly mention that. And yes, it is my OnlyFans. That's where all my nudes shall be housed. So with this beat, I think it was very well put together. The choices of the sounds, like with the low end, like I mentioned, that sort of acid sounding bass almost that has that cool synthy feel to it, as well as a West Coast whistle. These are all sort of elements that you would commonly hear in these old West Coast types of beats as well. The thing that I would say is keeping this beat from feeling as good or sounding as good as those old school ones is just the small little details in terms of the aesthetics. A lot of the sounds in this beat were very, very clean. They didn't necessarily feel like the old school types of sounds. Like the sound choice themselves were good. The way that everything was put together was good. It was just the processing, the sort of mixing techniques on top of all the sounds. That's where it sort of felt like it didn't really connect. So like I mentioned earlier, just playing around with saturation can go a really long way. And some aggressive saturation, at times distortion, can really help you introduce a lot of that feeling into your beat, like it is a little bit of an old school one. And it can also help really gel all the different sounds together and make everything feel not as detached, because I sort of did get that sense where a lot of the sounds in this beat felt detached and removed from one another. And what saturation can do is, like I mentioned, harmonic generation. So like if you imagine all your sounds taking up a very specific range in terms of their EQ, in terms of the frequency, each one's going to have its own distinct space. But if there's too much space, if there's obviously you don't want complete overlap, but at the same time you don't want everything to be completely separate from one another. At that point, that's when your beat can really sound cold and detached, and all the sounds don't really feel like they're working together. What saturation can do is color your sounds to the point where there's going to be a little bit more overlap between the different layers, and each of them are going to start to blend in with each other a little bit more and start to feel a little bit more natural. And so that's why for me, I like to play around with saturation to some degree on pretty much every single element in my beat, just because it's going to take all my sounds, have them bleed into one another in terms of the frequency space that they take up, and that can go a really long way in helping your beat not sound as cold and detached, and help you introduce that sort of aesthetic that you're looking for into your beat. So if that's something that you struggle with, your beats really feel cold, they don't really feel like all the sounds are working together, saturation can be a tool that can help with that. Yes. Pack the Kid says, damn, I got here late. That's unfortunate, my friend. We're going to go for a little bit more. Last keyword of the night, my lovely squirrels. Here we go. Whoa. What's happening with my keyboard? There we go. That's the last one of the night. While you guys send that in, would you put a saturator on mix bus? Well, it depends on what's being sent to the bus, I guess. Saturation is distortion's bodybuilder transvestite brother. Huh? Saturation, for those that don't know, is basically just a less extreme version of distortion to some degree. So, I'm not sure what that means. Guys, what do I do if a rapper asks me to send him type beats that I don't like making? That's an interesting question. Yes, Arian, I am thirsty. So my experience with this was when I first started making beats, I made hip hop, old school boom bap types of beats, which is why I got those placements early on. But what's interesting is I never really wanted to make those types of beats. Those are just the beats that I happened to make. When I was trying to figure out how to learn how to make beats, I was like trying to emulate a lot of the guys that I enjoyed. And at the same time, I was like, I might as well try to get some placements while I'm at it, and I ended up doing so. But nonetheless, it sort of got to the point where a lot of the relationships that I built with a lot of these artists, I didn't really feel like they were as valuable to me, because a lot of them were built on me making beats that I didn't necessarily even want to make, long-term speaking. And so with this conundrum that you have, Infection, that could be one of the things that you can think about when it comes to your career. What you want to do is try to make as many long-term relationships as possible, because everything that you gain from a relationship comes from compound interest. It's the long run that you want to think about. And so, yeah, you can satisfy this rapper and make a beat for them that they like, but long-term, that's not going to be sustainable for you. And so the relationship that is going to be built, it's going to be a very faulty one, because it's not something that you're going to be able to sustain. Because why would you want to make beats that you don't want to make forever? If you're interested in making long-term relationships with these artists and wanting to help them make their music for a long time, you got to think about your own ability to do so. So if you're making beats that you don't like, the rubber's going to hit the road at some point where you're just going to get sick of it, and that relationship's going to dissipate anyways. So find people who enjoy your beats for what they are and what you want to make, and yeah, you'll be cooking with fire at that point. Or what's the actual thing? Cooking with oil? Gasoline? Whatever. Rice with Chicken from Haby. Let's take a listen to this beat, Thrills, a G minor type of beat. So all you people out there that like your D major beats, get out of here, because this is a G minor type beat. right, that was Habee's beat there. It was hard to figure out what was happening with that beat. Like Infection said, I don't know what to say about this beat. I think I liked the melody that you came up with. I enjoyed the notes that were being played. I think the thing that was harming the beat there, in my opinion, you had one sound, it sounded like you used that one sound to play the entire the musical part of the beat, where you had your chords as well as the melody, and I think you used the same instrument for everything. The thing about that one particular instrument is it sounds good for the chords because it's a very prolonged type of sound, whereas when you use that sound for the melody, it felt a bit overbearing, just because it was one of those sounds where as long as you keep the note held down, it's going to play, and you had a lot of delay on it, so it just took up a lot of room. What I probably would have done was replaced the melodic notes with a different instrument, something that's a little bit more plucky, and really control just how prominent they are, just because for a lot of the beat, I felt like there was like almost no space for an artist to come in. There were certain sections where you got rid of the melody and you just had the chords. It felt like there was finally enough room to breathe, but then like 4 bars into that, you went right back to your big huge beat that had a lot going on. So I think the sound selection here, in terms of controlling for the melody and making sure that you're choosing a sound that isn't so dense, and just a little bit more sort of in the back and not as in your face, could have helped the beat have a little bit more balance, just because as it is, it just seemed like there was just way too much going for too many parts of the beat. And so if you're going to restructure this beat to be usable, I think you need to sort of scale back the idea or change the sound so they're just not as present and prominent. Here we go. I'm going to play Kieran Beats beat here because I enjoy a Big Mac. So let's listen to this beat here. A little Big Mac beat.
Uno, dos, tres, cuatro.
Okay, that was Kieran Beats beat there. Very straightforward beat. I'm not sure how long this fella's been making beats for. What I'll say is that for me, we sort of talked about this concept earlier with some of the people that were in my course. Something in the beat needs to stand out, whether it's the sounds that you choose or the sort of progression that you come up with. Something sort of needs to catch your listener's attention. And I feel like for a big part of this beat, like the piano was very straightforward. It sounded like a very stock piano, and nothing about the way the piano was played was sort of remarkable or attention grabbing. This is one of the sort of pitfalls of using your mouse and keyboard as opposed to like a MIDI keyboard. You sort of do need to pay attention to some of the smaller details at times and sort of push sounds off just so there's a little bit humanness to it, just because there's nothing in this beat that felt like it stood out. The only thing that would stand out to me were like the trumpets and like the horns. That was something a little bit more unique, but that came way later in the beat. So I started maybe 3 months ago. I'm not sure whether that's the producer that made this beat. They have a different name, but what I'll say is if that is a producer, good job of putting your beat together. But nonetheless, something about the beat has to be attention grabbing. Something about the beat has to be unique. If you're just trying to put sounds together that you're not really convinced by, and you're thinking, well, maybe someone will like this beat, I don't think that's a good way of trying to improve. Like, you sort of really do need to focus on, okay, what about this beat really stands out to me? And if there's nothing in the beat that really feels unique by your own standards, sort of sit with the main idea and try to play around with different sounds or different progressions to the point where something does finally stand out and feel unique to you. Because to me, unfortunately, this beat really didn't stand out in really any way. It sounds like, musically speaking, everything was well put together, so there is a good fundamental understanding of beat making. And like I said, the arrangement was dynamic enough. There are sounds going in and out. So on that front, I think this producer's doing a good job. Put your own personality into it. Try to come up with something that's a little bit more unique to you. Because to me, this feels like it could have been created by like any old producer. This doesn't really feel like your personality's in it. And I would like to hear what your personality sounds like, because that's what we're trying to do at the end of the day, my friends. Oh, there he is. So he made beats 9 months ago. So yeah, what I'd say is, at this point, I want to hear your personality. Like I said, like, you used a lot of sounds that were very run-of-the-mill, and they were put together in a way that was, it worked, musically speaking, but nothing was sort of inventive. So I want to hear you push yourself and try to introduce your own ideas. Try to pick sounds that you think, I don't really hear many people use these types of sounds, but I'm going to try to do this anyways, because everything in this beat, for the most part, it was just very, like Grout says, make art. Let's make some art here. All right, guys. My chicken is defrosted. The point of this stream has been a success. So let's listen to one more beat. My rib is starting to hurt. I think it's because of the way I'm sitting. So let's do one more beat here. Thank you all for showing up once again. The next stream is going to be not on this next Sunday. I plan on doing a bunch of streams during the launch week of my course. So pay attention to the announcements. We're going to have a lot of streams coming up within the next 2 to 3 weeks. So be on the lookout. We're going to have a lot of fun, lots of hugs, lots of kisses. Bring your grandma in, tell her to make a beat. I'll review it. I don't care. But yeah, thank you guys for showing up this time. It's always hard. I know a lot of you guys, it's almost your bedtime. So it really does mean a lot to me. So thank you for showing up. Last beat of the night. Last time Taco Bell gave me a panic attack, so I'm not going to be listening to no Taco Bell beat, because that's the devil. Do we got any Popeyes beats here? Because I feel like eating Popeyes, but I got my chicken thawed. You know what? Positive influence right here. Nicholas, whey protein. Let's all make muscles, guys. Make beats, make muscles, make babies. That's my motto that I just came up with. Here we go. Last beat of the night. Thank you guys for coming. Let's take a listen.
It's you, Nick.
All right, that was Nicholas's beat. Someone in the chat mentioned I was looking like I was laughing. Someone in the chat said Joe Biden type beat. I don't know why that made me laugh because I have no idea what that even means. So with this beat, I think one of the things, like I mentioned before, is that the lo-fi aesthetic was a miss here. Again, it just sounded like so much of this beat was trap elements, and like lo-fi is more than just a sort of a whimsical chord progression. It has to, you need to sort of think about the aesthetic, and the sound selection has to also play into that. Some of these synths and whatnot really did feel like it fell into that, especially the wah-wah pad. I would say I would push that a bit further back. It was a bit prominent and a little bit in your face. I think that would have been better balanced, being a little bit more reverby and pushed back. But the big culprit here was the drums and the drum pattern, very trap-esque. Didn't really feel like it was a lo-fi beat. So again, since you submitted this as a lo-fi submission, I'm going to take it on the basis that you're trying to make a lo-fi beat. So I think, yeah, watch the videos that I came up with prior on lo-fi drum patterns. I also talk about lo-fi drum selection in those beats to give you a better understanding of the types of things that you should be trying and the sounds that you should be using if you want to make a lo-fi beat. Because yeah, I think it was a bit of a miss with this beat in terms of the aesthetic choices that were made. Yeah, that's it for me, guys. I got a chicken to cook. I got chicken. I got sweet potato. I got good stuff happening over here. So thank you guys once again. It's been real. I love you all, and we'll be doing this sooner than 2 weeks. So join the Discord, look out for the announcements, and we'll be doing this again very soon. And make sure to kiss your grandma. Goodbye, everyone. Ta-ta. Bye-bye. Kisses.